In the Maimer, Nasan Aliyas here, Ktana, page 135. We are 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines from the bottom of the page, 135. After the words the Chochma Sa'ilah, and there's a comma there. Until now, the Rebbe explained the Avodah of Kisei. Remember that she ordered the Isha Shunamis. She said, let's put a table, let's put a bed, a table, a chair, and a menorah into the room for the guest. So we explained already the spiritual idea of the bed and the table. In this chapter, the Rebbe begins explaining what the kisei is about. And he says kisei represents Shema, because the halacha is when you say Shema, you should be sitting. So this is why it represents, and the Rebbe explained that this, so he started to explain Shema. And Shema is Shema Yisrael. And in this mimer, he so far divides the word Yisrael as two words, Yasar, not Yashar, with a sin. Yasar, from the word Sar, dominion, control. Yasar Kael, the control of Kael. Kael, he says, refers to the 30 attributes of the Nefesh Elikis. I'm not going to go into the Kabbalistic ideas which he mentions and we spoke about last week. But briefly, that's what it's. So now the Rebbe is going to continue. He's continuing to explain what Shema is about. Okay? Because if you say that this concept, Yaini, of a kisei is a chair, what are we doing when we sit by Shema? Well, we say the words. We even know the translation, but what's the spiritual significance? Okay, let's see what he says. V'akavona b'zeh hu d'seichel eloki yiskabel b'seichel enushi. What we want, Moshe, when we say Shema, is that godly logic should be niskabel, yitkabel, should be received, should become part of the makeup of the nefesh of Seichel Enushi. Now you notice he doesn't say here Seichel of Nefesh Habamis. He says Seichel HaEnushi, which means Avram, human intellect. Let's see I'm thinking of something in particular, but before I say it, I want to see what the Rebbe says. V'hainu Shesichlei HaEnushi. This means that one's intellect, the human intellect, man's intellect, Yekli should become a vessel lekabel seichel eliki, to receive godly seichel. Possibly, the Rebbe is alluding to this idea. Yonason, we learned elsewhere in Chassidus there is seichel of nefesh abamis. What's the seichel of nefesh abamis? The logic to justify my desires. Imagine you come in to shul one day, you say, I want today to put a beach chair in the middle of the shul and lay down because I want to feel good when I'm davening and it's uncomfortable on these chairs. So they walk over to you and say, my dear friend, this is a shul. We don't have beach chairs in the shul. I don't care. That's what I feel good about doing. That's Nefesh Habami. Then you say to yourself, wait a second. I'll never get them to allow me to do that. So I have to concoct a story. So you start justifying your desire. I have a stomach ache. I have a backache. I have this. I have that. And I do want to hear Kadeshim. Do me a favor. Let me be in the back with my beach chair. So you find an excuse to justify the taiva. That's what we call in Chassidus the seichel of the nefesh habami. Let's go to the other extreme. The seichel of the nefesh eliki. The nefesh eliki is godliness. Godliness doesn't need any justifications. It's God. It's holy. Nevertheless, we want that the human mind should also be inspired with the godly desire. If it's only a godly desire, at the end of the day, it's a desire. Now you hear that what I just said? Even a godly desire, Yonason, if it's just a taiva of the nefesh elikis, it's still a taiva. It's a holy taiva and a good taiva, but it's a taiva. And what happens is that one taiva can knock out the other taiva. Right? Hey, I was infatuated with this girl and I ended up marrying her. Now she's old and ugly and I found a more pretty one, so I drop her and I take the more pretty one. One infatuation leads to another infatuation, and in that case, it's a nefesh abami. It's an animal reason for marrying is an infatuation. But say even she's intelligent, she's spiritual, on and on. It's like nefesh eloki. No, it is nefesh eloki, but it's still a desire of nefesh eloki. You have to be able to explain to yourself and to others, when the situation warrants, why your nefesh eloki desire is holy. In other words, seichel, listen to this, available. Seichel is an adjunct to the nefesh eliki's desire, but a very important and necessary adjunct. If you cannot explain it, there's something lacking in the purity of it. Now, I say that with trepidation, because does this mean to say someone who's ne'ilah, he's inspired, or he goes to the oil, is inspired, or he sits in the shir, he's inspired, and he wants to go run out and put on tefillin with Yid, or give tzedakah, help another Yid, learn more Torah, etc. Is that bad? No, it's not bad. But it could be better. If you don't include the seichel into the wants of the nefesh eliki, something's lacking. Okay. So we talk about the two extremes, the seichel of nefesh eliki and the seichel of nefesh abami. How the question still remains: who and what decides what I should use and when I should use it? And the answer is, in other words, we're put in simple terms: where is free will? The seichel of the nefesh eliki is harnessed and controlled by what? By the nefesh elikis. The seichel of the nefesh abamis is controlled and harnessed and directed by the nefesh abamis. No, so where's my free will? I'm pre-programmed. Even my seichel's pre-programmed. So this explains, no, you're not pre-programmed, because there is a third dimension in the human being gifted by Hashem, which is called human intelligence in its pure form, seichel and nushi. And it's that area that both the Eliki and the Bahami are fighting over, or in the terminology of the Alter Rebbe in chapter 9 in Tanya, it's the Ir Katana. It's the city. Both want to control the city, the Kazakhs and the communists. Who's going to control the city? And they're both fighting over the city. The Nefesh Elikis and the Nefesh Abamas are both fighting over pure seichel, free will. And guess what? It's up to us. Hashem gifted us a gewaltige Zach. Bchira Chavshis, free will. You have to make the choice. Who is the you? Seichel, pure seichel. That's not predetermined to the right or the left. I gave you this drasha because the Rebbe says here very interesting language, I find. That the kavana of the seichel eloki, it should be niskabel and seichel and nushi. Why doesn't he say over here, Moshe, it should be niskabel in the seichel of nefesh abami? You know why? Because the nefesh abamis is never going to be makabel anything really from the nefesh elikis. I don't like you and I don't want you. Get out of my domain. Get out of my house. But I make a lot of sense. I don't care. I'm an animal. You can talk till I'm blue in the face. Get out. I don't want you. But the seichel of the nefesh nushi is neutral territory. I'm willing to listen. Because that's what I'm about. Hearing both sides and making a determination. And that is real man. So the next time someone asks you, who is real man? Real man is the Seichel of Nefesh Anushi, that's the place of Bchira Chofshis, free will. Possibly, this is what the Rebbe is alluding to here, and that's why he says that the objective of the Seichel of the Nefesh Elokis of Shema Yisrael, right? Yisrael is Yasar Kael. Kael, we said, is Nefesh Elokis. That should resonate. That's the word I was looking for before. That should resonate by the Seichel Anushi. And that's not, Yonason, and that's not an easy job. Because let me ask you, where is the Seichel of Nefesh Anushi? It's in this world. This world is Yaini Olam, from the word Helem, concealed. We don't see God in the street. So the natural gravitation of this world, Moshe, is to be foolish. Shtus. Like the Maimer of Basil Agani. Shtus. That's the natural tendency. Right? Es nesech schlafen schlaft sich, was soll man tun, as es daven sich nicht. Eating we eat, sleeping we sleep. What should we do? We're not interested in davening and learning. Come along, Chassidim, and they explain the niggin. When it comes to eating and sleeping and drinking, we naturally gravitate that. You don't eat for a day, you're like a wild beast. You don't sleep, you're deprived, and you can't function. You don't need to have a college lecture or a shiur from Rabbi Dolphin to tell you to eat and sleep and drink. But when it comes to davening and learning, find me a person who gravitates naturally to learning and davening. Very seldom. And like I told you, one of my son's tutor, he was tutoring my son when he was a young teenager, and he learned, and he loved to learn. I said, "Wow, you love to learn." He says, "Oh, really? I learn because that's what I need to do. I really naturally love to learn." No, I don't. I'd rather shoot the breeze in the basement, drinking coffee and hacking the chinik. Right? So when we talk about a natural inclination, just like eating, sleeping, and drinking, and that's why Chassidim would sing the song. I think it goes back to the Mikkel Rebbe's Chassidim. Essen, essach, trinken, trinkzach. See, that zach in Yiddish means, it's like natural. In English, there's no such a word. Drinking, drinks itself. Sleeping, sleeping. What should we do? Alles daven sich nicht, meaning it doesn't daven automatically. Oh yes, nesach, schlafen, schlafzach. Now says, let in sich nicht. And it goes over and over. Ay, 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 you hear that? Ay, ay, ay is like the cry. Ay, 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 la, da, da, ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 see them with daven with a sniggin. Because they knew their own deficiency and shortness. And in other words, they're davening and they're learning. And they're doing mitzvahs, but it's not automatic. It's not natural. Like it says on the Bima, Kan Sarach Lifkos. Here you have to cry. Which in Chabad is like abhorred, like you got to be instructed to cry. If you have to be instructed to cry, you're not really crying. You're a faker. It's like pre-programmed crying. Or excuse the expression, we used to call it in the world, in our world, it's bathroom tears. When you're constipated, you give out tears. Excuse the expression. But you understand the point. That's called tears. So when Moshe tells me about people in the shul on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur who pre-programmed themselves to cry, enough said. And I don't mean God forbid to poo-poo a Jew's avodah, because we really don't know, Moshe, if it's coming from the right side or the left side. But I can hear the argument, Moshe, I can very well hear the argument. And the same is true for Simcha. Oh, now dance, pinch him, and all of a sudden he starts dancing. Like I tell you, I come to Fabrengen sometimes. They say, Rabbi Dolphin, Farbrengen, sing. I said, what am I, a jukebox? You put in 5 coins, 5 cents, and all of a sudden, is that the way it works? If that's the way it works, you got the wrong person. I'm not Farbrengen. Find yourself some other imposter. The whole idea of Chassidus is to be real. Now, sure, a little mashke helps, and good friends and clapping helps, and sitting together, absolutely. But at the end of the day, Velvel, it's the person himself. That is avodas Hashem. There's no substitute for that. None. Anyone tells you otherwise, they're lying to themselves and to you. And you know what the Rebbe Marash said? A fool only fools himself. Then anderen can nit naden. The other person he can't fool because he knows you're a liar and a fool. So who is he nadding? Who is he fooling? Only himself. So the emes is the emes. Go back to the text now. Now the Rebbe looks at the Aleph of Yisrael, right? Yasar Keil Aleph Lamed. It says the Aleph means instruction. Bringing the verse, A'alefcha Chochma, I will instruct and teach you wisdom. A'alefcha Bina, I will instruct and teach you comprehension. So since the word Aleph comes from, it means, what does the word Aleph mean, Moshe? If I ask you, what does the word Beis mean? You're a sefer. Aleph, Beis, Gimel. What does the word Gimel mean? It's a letter, but it has a meaning. What does Beis mean? A house, a bayis. Why? But Pashtus, you're the sefer, tell me if I'm wrong. But the way you write the Beis is like, it's 3 sides, like a bayis. It's like, it has support from all 3 sides. What does Aleph mean? Aleph means instruction. And he quotes the verse, A'alefcha bi Chochma. I will teach you Chochma. I will teach you Bina. V'hainu hamoichin the nefesh alikis. This refers to the intellect of the godly drive, shemachayim es hamidos, which vivifies the emotions, umegadlim umecharvim es hamidos, and expand and enlarge and expand the emotions, liyos b'bchinus partzuf, that the emotion should have a face. The word partzuf means a face. Now, what does that mean, Velvel? The emotions, the midah should have a face. Briefly, again, it's a concept in Kabbalah, but just briefly here. What this means is, if there's an emotion that's not fully developed and expanded, you don't get the full picture of the emotion. You get some of the emotion. What we want ultimately is that the emotion should be a healthy emotion, i.e. a full partzuf. We see the whole face. Imagine I'm teaching you and you only see my backside or my side. You only get part of it, and you don't get the full picture, and hence you don't have the full experience. So the Rebbe is saying, Yisrael, Yasar Keil, you're in a position now when you say Shema through meditation to have your midos dominate in holiness. You need the full sense of the midah. Aleph Keil. You need it to be such that it has an intelligence too, and it's not just a random emotional blurt where I just get inspired and and I go on. The next day, I've lost the inspiration. What happened to your inspiration? Let's go back. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Pastorah. We had inspiration. Do we feel it today on the 8th of Shvat, which, by the way, is Rabbi Reichik Shalom's yahrzeit, Yonasim? Rabbi Shmuel David Reichik, today's yahrzeit, and also the yahrzeit of a Yid who I met in Nachlarot. Spent a lot of time with him, Rabbi Avram Eisenbach, and he taught me a lot of things. He was born and bred Yerushalmi, I believe, and he was a special Yid. And I spent a lot of time talking to him, or listening to him, rather, listening. And he told me that on Tisha B'Av, 1929, the previous Rebbe's secretary, Yecheskel Chacha Fagin, came from 5 Ben Yehuda. There was the hotel at Drumsky, That's number 5. The building still stands, I believe. Went up, because I used to go up that hill too. Went up, crossed over, came to the Rand Shul, Batei Rand Shul, Reb Mendel Rand, which was the hub of Tzanzer Hasidim and Hasidus. I think I told you that there were 2 shuls in that larger neighborhood, meaning that were really the Hasidic shuls. The Balatanya Shul in Meir Sharim was the hub of Hasidim, Chabad-oriented Hasidim primarily, and Tzanz, which was in the Batei Rand Shul, where Yonason used to live a few blocks away. Yonason, wake up and remember this, right? Yonason, remember? You lived right there. And we davened together. Yonason and I davened together many mornings over there. So anyway, Rabbi Chatzah Fagin, I don't know why he didn't go. I think I know why. He didn't go to the Balatanya Shul, which was equidistant. Right there, 5. You can go down to Meir Sharim. You can go up to Nachlaot. So it's equidistant. But I think it was a Kappas Shul still. The Tzemach Tzedek had and the previous Rebbe, and they were Lubavitch, so they didn't want to kind of interfere. This is my hunch. No one told me this, but that's what I smell over here. That's why he didn't go down to the Kappas Shul and Meir Sharim. He went up to the Tzanzer Shul. And he comes in and he says that Rebbe doesn't have a minyan. He needs a minyan for Mincha. This shul had such holy people. Yom Kippur, if you heard the crying there, it was real. And it moved, not Yom Kippur, I'm saying Tisha B'Av. The Churban Abayis by these Yidden was real, even though they were 20, 25 minutes away, walked to the Kaisel. It was real, really. He told me, Mamish, the people there were like Bali Madrega. That's a whole other discussion. Now, you heard a lot about the people who davened there. Mamish, they were called Yakira Yerushalayim. The most precious Jews of Jerusalem davened in that shul and lived over there in Batei Rand. So could you imagine? You're going to leave your shul mincha when we say nachem once a year? This is the tefillah, the once a year tefillah of rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash is mincha time. And in comes Reb Chatzah Fagin, Reb Yecheskel Fagin says the Rebbe doesn't have a minyan. Reb Avram Eisenbach's father, Chaim Hirsch was his name, I think, who knew Lubavitch just because of one Yid, Reb David Tzvi, known as the Radatz, who came to Eretz Yisrael in 1925. He lived 6 months, he passed away, that's a whole other story. And he was mamish like a tzaddik, a beinoni, and the way he looked, there are pictures online, we have pictures of him, a picture of him. And he was going in learning, and psak, and chassidus, and avodah, everything. And all of Yerushalayim was talking about this Reb David Tzvi David Tzvi Hirsch, Radatz, Reb David Tzvi Hirsch. And he and some of the other Yakir Yerushalayim were learning Chassidus Chabad with him. So they were mamish impacted. So when Reb Chatzah Fagin came in and asked for a minyan, his father, he told me, got up, put on his zulka, the brown zulka that Yerushalmi wear. Took his little son, I think he was 10 or 11 in 1929, this Avram, he told me this. I'm telling you a story that no one knows. He told me this. He took him by the hand and he said, come, mirgain. Wow. From the Salto Shamna, from the best of the shul, is leaving Batei Rand shul to go help make a minyan. And this Avram Hirsch told me that he went along with his father to help the Frierdiker Rebbe have a minyan on Tisha B'Av 1929. It's his yahrzeit today. Schusay Yogan Aleinu. Of course, Rabbi Reichik, Shmuel David Reichik, the Frierdiker Rebbe Shadar, and the Rebbe Shliach needs no introduction. So why am I mentioning that? Because we're talking here about Pchinas Partzuf. You want a whole face. If you only get a partial face, you don't have the experience. So in other words, if someone comes into a shul and asks for a minyan, either I can make it or not. But if you have the background, and your father got to see what true Lubavitcher Russian Chassidim are all about, so then the request doesn't come just as one separate request. It's part of an entire parzuf. I'm connecting it to what we're learning. It's related. It's an entire experience. So of course I'm going to go, because I've identified with this approach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's legitimate and it's gewaldig and it's necessary. So although I'm a Tzanzer Chosid, not a Chabad Chosid, I leave my hub, my place, my love, and I go to help someone else. So the same thing is with the Midas. The Midas, if they're only Midos, it's not a full picture. Remember that. But people always say, but in my heart and I love it, very nice, but it needs to be with Seichel. If the Seichel is not there, that enlivens and expands the Midos are not a complete partzuf. Let's continue. V'zeu the Nefesh Elikis nikra keil. And this is now the meaning why the Nefesh Elikis is called in the Shema Yosar Keil. Shem hamoichin umidas the Nefesh Elikis. This refers to the full experience of both the intellect and the emotions of the Nefesh Elikis. V'yosar Keil hi avodah Elikis k'moshehu al pi ha'torah v'al pi kavana el yoina. And this avodah of Yosar Keil, it is the godly activity, the way Torah and the way God's intent, betachlis b'riyas v'savas ha'olam, is with God's ultimate plan of creating the world desires. T'hinik siv levad re'ei zeh motzasi. Besides, see what I found. Asher osa elikim, that God made us as Adam, man, Yoshar, proper, Vehema bikshu cheshbonis rabim, and they search many kinds of argument positions, cheshbonis, accounts, cheshbonis. Let's see what he says. Asher osa elikim es Adam Yoshar. What does this mean? Hine Adam koyal nefesh elikis. The Adam in the pasuk, the Adam in this pasuk refers to the godly soul, shenikra Adam, who is called Adam. The nefesh abamis, because the nefesh abamis nikra behema is called the animal. Nefesh elikis nikra, next page, top of 136. Nefesh elikis is called Adam. And what does it mean? God made man proper. The godly soul in its very core essence, who b'madreges yosher, is very proper. Velvel, the nefesh elikis knows what it needs. It's on the right path. To do what's proper in the eyes of God, your God. That's the properness of Torah mitzvahs. Next part of the verse, V'heima bikshu, and they sought cheshbonis rabim. The Rebbe explains, the kashenasim heima, when you become they, pirush. Look at this, shehem nasim shtayim. When you're no longer one, you become heima, they, two. V'hainu, when is that? B'yelidas haneshama beguf. When the soul descends into a body, that nefesh elikis mislabish by nefesh abamis, that the godly soul invests itself in nefesh abamis, v'heim shtayim, and then they are two. Then they seek many cheshbonos. Explains the Rebbe. V'hainu pizur hanefesh berabis machshavos. This means the chaos, the scatteredness, literally, of the soul with many thoughts, hatoides, that are anxiety-bound, umevalvelos, and confusing, I say the person by way of Hashem Yisborach. When the soul goes into the body and it becomes Yoni Hema, before it was one mission, one objective. Even the Nefesh Abamis had an objective to strengthen the Nefesh Elikis. But when it comes into the body, when the soul comes into the body, it becomes a dual experience, and one in which there is scatterness, there is chaos, and there is anxiety, and there is confusion. This expands itself to speech and action which are not godly. And that's why we say each morning, Shema Yisrael, listen, hear, pay attention, Yisrael. The Shema hu inyan asifa v'kibbutz. Shema also has the meaning of gathering. And Shaul heard the nation. Doesn't mean he heard the nation. Avram, what does it mean? He gathered the nation. Look at the language. Vayishma Shaul Sam. And Shaul heard the nation. No, he gathered the nation. The Targum, the Aramaic Targum, the Targum over there is the translation. Ukenoish Shaul Yos Amma. Ukenoish means gathering, gathered. And Shaul gathered Yos Amma, the nation, etc. When we say Shema, she kabitz v'yasof machshavoisa. A person needs to gather their thoughts, the Buddha of their speech, of their action, yosher, to be all proper, meaning all one, all straight. How? Who are Yedei is born this through meditating B'Rav Hashem Elokeinu, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu. Reflect on God, our God. Chochma bina shemokarai savus, referring to wisdom and comprehension, the first two of the 10 spheros, which is the source of creation. Vashem echod. Then we go to the next two words, the last two words of Shema, which is that God is one. Tani Hashem lo shenisi, referring to God is not changed by creation. Leaves the chlol say savus, because all of creation, who me'ara milvad, only comes from a mere reflection. So a mere reflection doesn't change the reality. The Krishma who bekisei, the Rebbe concludes the paragraph. That's why we understand that when she said, bring a chair, what are we referring to, Avram? Get involved in the activity of Shema, in the whole experience. Shukes Aleph. Kisei is comprised of Case Aleph. The Kois who base Kibbul. The Rebbe here teaches Kisei Moshe from the word Kos. Case Aleph. The Kos to contain the Aleph. The case Aleph, Shasechol Eliki, Yiskabel B'Sechol Nushi, as we said earlier, this means that the godly intelligence should be received and resonate in the human intelligence, Liyesh Hagili B'Sechol Eliki B'Chol Yonav, that godly logic and intellect and experience should permeate all of man's actions, Achan Agoisov B'Chol Yonav, until his conduct and all of his matters, should be guided by godly thought. What entered my mind when I said these words, Moshe, is that you need to make in Mitzvah Hashem a drawing, a painting, and you'll have great atzlach in selling it in Mitzvah Hashem, of all the oases of the Aleph base based on what we learn in Chassidus. Like you take over here this idea of Aleph, what you learned here, and I'll help you to concretize it, to get it down to the Nakuda. And that's how you draw the Aleph. And you take a base, and you draw a base in a manner, so it wouldn't be, halachic art. It might not be halachically kosher, but at least the makeup of the letters would symbolize the message that Chassidus says about the letters. Have you ever thought of that?
I like that. No, not exactly how you said it now, but I like that.
I'm giving you future work. You're young, Mitzvah Hashem. You live a long time, but I think it would be very, very beautiful. I don't know. Maybe Michal Muchnik or someone else has already done it. I don't think so. In other words, some of the Hasidic artists have done some art that's based on Kabbalah and Chassidus. But more in a general way, I think. I'm not sure. I'm talking about literally taking like the letters, the 22 letters, and showing them with the Nekuda that we learn in Chassidus. Chavra, we'll learn tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, and Wednesday we're going to Fabrein for Yud Shvat. Have a great day, everyone. Zai Gesund, Tatzlacha. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.